Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Such a treat to have you. And my partner Tim is joining.
Hello, everyone.
Because you've probably heard him many times on the podcast. And that was one of the things I got in the survey was like, more Tim. He's like,
sorry.
So he is here with us, and thank you for all your amazing questions. My gosh, you guys. And you know what was really interesting is themes. There was like a massive theme kind of woven throughout them. So we have tons of material for you tonight and a surprise guest. So excited to share. Anyway.
More of a surprise than me.
Yeah. So what I would love for you to do, if you would be willing, is head on over into the chat box. Name, where are you tuning in from tonight? I see Shizuka is here from Japan, so I can see just a few little faces here. And Stephen and Melinda and Heather and my mom. That's all I can see right now in the little boxes. So hello, you guys. But let me know, where are you checking in from? And if you think about it, and you may know this because you answered this in the survey, your favorite Tranquility du Jour podcast episode. It doesn't have to be the number because who knows numbers, but it may be, or particular interview. Because that was really interesting to get that feedback in the survey, because it was like, oh my gosh, some of you were like deep cuts, going back to like the early days. So thank you. So while you're doing that, I wanted to share a few facts about Tranquility du Jour podcast, go through the agenda, and then I'll say hellos, and then we'll hand it over to our surprise guest. Right, Bunny?
Yes.
Okay, so podcast. Okay, 15 years ago it started, next month. So 15 freaking years, September 2005. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but we were in Mexico for a wedding, and that was my first podcast in the bathroom because I was scared to record in front of Tim. And then over 3 million downloads. We just recently hit that. Was that last month or 2 months ago?
I don't remember, but it was relatively recently.
I was like, oh, that sounds like a lot, because people will ask me about downloads. I'm like, I have no idea, right? So he's like 3 million. I'm like, oh, that's nice, I guess. So 500 episodes, clearly, that's tonight. And this was really interesting. This is something that he told me tonight. Tranquility du Jour podcast has been downloaded in 91 countries over the past 3 months. So it's really interesting because, I think so many people are really tuning into this medium. Well, they have been for the past many years, but, I think also during quarantine. So it was like, wow, 91 countries. That's amazing.
Hello, Guyana.
Yeah.
The one person in Guyana.
We
see you.
Agenda. So we have a surprise guest, as I mentioned, and she just happens to be the most downloaded podcast of Tranquility du Jour's history. Like, that's amazing. So you're going to hear from her, and she's going to do some fun little sharing, which I won't give it away. You'll see. Also, we're going to answer your questions, kind of broken into past, present. We'll spend a bit more time in the present because that was like where a lot of the questions were, and then future. I'm also going to announce the August book club pick, although I think I gave away too many clues in my clues yesterday because pretty much everyone guessed it. But it's Black man from the South. What was the other thing that I said? Tall. And this was the thing that I think gave it away. Wears caftans, loves caftans. Anyway, so I think I gave it away, but I started the book last night. It's freaking amazing. So more on that later. We'll end with a toast, so please have a libation nearby. We actually happen to have the Tranquil Space 15-year anniversary flutes, and I'm drinking sparkling water, so just have something like that nearby if you'd like. And then also, if you would share photos of your kind of setup, I always love seeing that from you all. And just use hashtag Tranquility du Jour, and then I'll find them. And I always love seeing them. So as you can see, we are in a different location. We're out at Tim's cabin in West Virginia. And so it's very boy, and so I had to girly it up. So I'm like, twinkle lights, pigs and pugs, flowers. It's like,
this is not that boy. This room is like the furthest thing from boy. I mean, the other rooms maybe. I mean,
it's so boy.
The painting of Muhammad Ali, I'll confess, is maybe a little more boy.
It's so boy. Yeah. I need more. Yeah. So anyway, we tried to girlify it for you. I hope that it comes through. All right, so I'm going to head on over to the chat box, say hello, and then I will be turning it over to our surprise guest that I'm like so excited about. Okay, so we got Melanie from Utah, Jamie from upstate New York, Angela, Illinois, Elena from New York,
Empire
Lisa,
State,
Chicago, Lenore from Chicago, Stephen, Washington, D.C. Stephen notes. He's my first love, pre-Tim.
She doesn't have favorites, but Stephen's a favorite. I'm just here to say.
Elise from Minneapolis. Consada, hello again. She was at our pre-party, Rhode Island. We had a pre-party, just a little kind of gathering for people who have been to the virtual retreats. The past 3 that I've done, April, May, and July. Anyway, so we just met up and she was there. So welcome back, Lisa. Yeah, oh my gosh, so many lovelies. Let's see, and I'm curious. Fairfax, Deborah again, Amy from Bethesda, Naked Dog Palace, Danielle, and her favorite Susanna Conway. Yes, all caps of wardrobe episodes. Holly, those are good ones. They are good. When you sold the yoga studio and you were transitioning to your new life, Melanie. Yeah, thank you. Debbie, Long Island, Dewey cannot pinpoint, but the podcast on creativity. Yeah, there's a lot of those. Carrie from Cabin in the Woods of Pennsylvania. I love the podcast episodes with Tim. Yeah, he's always a favorite. It's like he's a favorite.
Checks in the mail. I'm curious, not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt. Has anybody listened to all 500 episodes? I know I have, just because I produced them all. But I'm just curious: has anybody done the full 500?
Yeah, if so,
throw that, please. You deserve recognition for sure.
You do. You deserve to be like bowed to, because I haven't even listened to like
one.
Yeah, I don't listen to them. Isn't that craziness? Oh my God! So we have so many amazing people from all freaking over. Sark, Leslie, yes, I love me some Sark. She's so great. Andre, you guys are guessing. You're figuring it out. Twinkle Lights rule. They do. Awesome, you guys. All right. So thank you. It's so fun to see everybody here. The episode with Julia Coney. Yes. I think we've done 2 with Julia.
Yep.
And yes, reached out to her to do one because she's doing all this like Black women and wine, and reached out to her. So hoping that we can get her back on the show.
She's become a wine mogul.
Yeah, she is like a wine mogul.
Love Julia.
Yeah, listen to about 400. Okay, well, Lisa,
well, you've got some work to do, don't you?
You do.
I'm kidding. It's amazing.
Yeah, probably listen to close to 500. That's amazing, you guys. Thank you. And if you listen to the first one, I linked it in a recent love note, but it's like so funny because it's like me in a Mexico bathroom.
Literally. The
like
acoustics were amazing.
Okay, so great, wonderful. So now, without further ado, thank you guys, by the way, so much for being here. All right, so you are about to hear from the most downloaded Tranquility du Jour podcast, love, Jamie Cat Callan. So I'll just read her bio to you for those of you who don't know her, and then we'll turn it over to her for a little demonstration. Okay, she is the author of 4 French lifestyle books, including the best-selling French Women Don't Sleep Alone, Bonjour Happiness, and Ooh La La, and most recently, Parisian Charm School. That's the one most downloaded. Her books have been translated into 31 different languages. Hello, amazing. Inspired by her French grandmother, Jamie has traveled to Paris many, many times, beginning in the 1970s. Today, she and her husband live on La Belle Farm in upstate New York, where they garden, bake bread, and make their own brand of hard, sparkling apple cider from their apple trees. She believes in living simply with pleasure and lots of joie de vivre. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but I'm trying.
No, you nailed it.
Really?
We used to say joie de vivre.
Yeah.
Vivre. Yeah. We got corrected on that one.
Yeah. People were like, I don't know what you're saying. And she loves sharing her French secrets with you. So without further ado, we are going to hand it over to the lovely Jamie. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here. I'm so honored. And my goodness, Kimberly and Tim, am I not being seen? there.
Not yet.
Throw on your video.
If you hit start video in the lower left.
There you are.
How am I? Can you see
Hello.
me? Yay. Hello, everybody. Oh my God, I felt so honored when Kimberly asked me to come on and talk to you because, her peeps are my peeps. I think we're very simpatico. And I just want to say, you two together are so adorable. Oh my goodness. I've never seen the two of you together. So you're really, really cute. What a cute couple. And thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a big, big fan. I brought out a couple of my Tranquility du Jour books. And so I'm absolutely in love with Tranquility du Jour and everything Kimberly does. So she asks, and it's so good to see, I see like Vicki, Cindy Vickers, I know, and I'm seeing people that I actually am familiar with, Kathleen Peterson. So I'm honored to be here. Kimberly asked me to do a little scarf demonstration, so I'm going to do something really kind of abbreviated and quick, but something fun for you with a little bit of a takeaway. So I just wanted to actually start off with what I'm wearing today. This is actually a perfect topic for the time of the pandemic because we often have Zoom calls, but you don't want to get all dressed up in some get up for a Zoom call. So actually right now I'm wearing a beautiful Tranquility du Jour top, just like Kimberly's, and also actually a pair of leggings, ballerina leggings. But if this were a regular Zoom, nobody would know what I have on my second half. So I chose to start with this. This is a beautiful Pashima. Actually, it's a Soirée that my father brought back from India, and I've had it since 1980, and I love it, and it never goes out of style. And what's great about it is, so if I just have it over my shoulders, it just adds a pop of color, and it just adds a sense of formality and respect and a little bit of dressiness. If I was going to the ambassador's house later tonight, I would switch off the leggings. That I'd wear a nice black pencil skirt perhaps, but I would put it over to the side and dress it up with some jewelry. But it can be worn like that. But the amazing thing about this is that I can actually just scrunch it up and double it and tie it. And then it just seems, it's just like a pretty scarf. So it's incredible all the things that you can do with just one scarf. So that's that one, which is a big favorite of mine. I always travel with it because it's so versatile. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to show you this little, this I got from Galerie Lafayette in Paris years ago. What's great about this, it's the graphics. So the black and white kind of mixes up, and it can become lots of things. So I could wear it like this. And it's interesting, just by switching from the blue silk to this, suddenly I seem really hip, right?
You are hip. You're really hip. Blue scarf.
I don't think I've ever been particularly hip, but or edgy, but I try. Anyway, so for this, I could tuck it in, and then it becomes sort of more of a collar. I could wear it like that, and actually, it can also be an infinity scarf. You've seen those where you tie them at the end. You don't have to actually buy an infinity scarf, but you can just make your own with a long scarf. So, or you could just actually tie it in front, and it's quite nice. So that's that one. Now I wanted to show you my invention. I know you're very excited. Kimberly, you've seen my invention. You in Baltimore. Kimberly came to my book event in Baltimore, but I'm so proud of this idea. So I have a man's tie the amazing thing is, men aren't wearing ties anymore. So therefore, right? And this is a beautiful silk tie. All the consignment shops are selling these for like $5. And it's a really good silk tie. What I really like about it is it's got beautiful burgundy silk fabric inside. So what I find, this is the most versatile thing. I went to Hermes and they had things like this and they were selling them for $500. So just go to a consignment shop. You could buy it for $5. French women are frugal, ladies and gentlemen. So that's part of it. So anyway, here is my little cravat. And it's basically a man's tie. And I wore this to a Paris party a few years ago. And the Parisian gals, the Parisiennes, were just enthralled by this because it's a very French thing. It's, being French and having this, je ne sais quoi. It's not about, going out and spending $1 million. It's really an art form. It's about being clever and creative with what you have. So this is my little invention. I'm very proud of it. Patent pending. Just kidding. But, you can also do lots of things with this if you wanted to. You could, there's the pug. Who is this?
This is Gizmo. Sorry, he was growling behind us, so Tim had to get him.
I wish I had Monsieur Mustache, but he's outside right now. He's outside in the rain. We're having thunderstorms here in upstate New York. Anyway, I also can make it into a little bracelet. It's very cute and very fun. And also, sometimes I will tie these around. I decided you could tie it around your pocketbook, but since I'm on the farm and I'm actually picking berries every day, I pick wild blackberries these days, but I'll take something like a bandana and I tie it on my basket. And I just, nobody sees it but me, but it just gives me this little lift. It just makes me feel happy and festive. And then, the bandana, of course, is very helpful during this age of the coronavirus. So it can be also a mask. If you, in an emergency and you really had to do something, always have a little bandana with you. All right, now, finally, this is the last thing. I want to show you, I do have an Hermes. Actually, I have 2 Hermeses, but this is the one my husband gave me, and I really treasure it. And I treasure the box. If anybody gives you an Hermes, you must save your box, okay? Because you'll hand down your scarf to your granddaughter and your great-granddaughter, but she may decide she wants to sell it. And therefore, she must have that box because it's very important. When you go to the Clignancourt flea market, they're going to want it in a box. So here's my beautiful scarf. And they all have themes. This is the Promenade de Planton, which is the Plato's Walk. And you can't really see it that well, but it's really, really colorful and beautiful. And it's a square scarf. And I know a big square scarf. And I know a lot of you wear the long scarves and maybe you're not wearing your square scarves. And I would just tell you that you need to wear your square scarves. They're so versatile. They're so fun and they're so beautiful. And again, whatever you're wearing, you immediately add a little bit of panache to it. So this is it Dr. Deborah Burks, is it? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you see her scarves?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She has a solid scarf game.
I know. She's like single-handedly bringing back the scarf. So this is called the Boy Scout. So it's just like what a Boy Scout would wear over here. See, Tim could wear this. And then this is the side one. So this is what Dr. Deborah wears a lot. So it's just over to the side. You might put a little pin here, but this has a little bit more of a kind of splash to it. And then this one. See, this is the bandit. So it's just in the back. And it's, and if I were wearing, say, a white shirt, I might then tuck it in. And then I have a ascot. So an ascot, when you tuck it into your white shirt, and it's very businesslike and very professional. It's an easy way to get very professional. This is where you take the little tags in the back, you bring them forward, you tie them, and this is called the Parisienne. The Parisians wear this a lot. And again, it just can take a really, really simple outfit and suddenly make it just a little dressier. And then this is the last one, second to last. I have two more to show you because I promised to make this quick. This, you may remember back in the day, probably you're all too young to remember this, but I remember every Saturday the ladies in the neighborhood would go get their hair done, or they would actually put their hair in rollers. This is the 1960s, like really early 60s, big rollers. And then they would walk around all day Saturday, all day Saturday during the day with their hair like this, right? And it would be like this, but the big rollers. So you have to just imagine it. This is called the babushka. Everybody knows this one, right? Maybe you don't know it's called the babushka, but it's like, oh, you have your basket. Oh, it's the babushka. So the amazing thing about the babushka is, I'm going to turn around because it's like one little thing and you can turn it into something else. So I turn around and then I tie it in the back and suddenly I have the Grace Kelly. So I took that babushka just by tying it around. Of course, the Ray-Bans help a little bit. But now, yes, I have the Grace Kelly. So that is my scarf demonstration. And congratulations on 500 episodes. I am so, so proud of you. And I'm so grateful that you made me a part of this very festive occasion.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was amazing. I'd forgotten some of those from that demonstration you did in Baltimore, and they're so great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
The title belt holder of most downloaded podcast.
Yeah,
Jamie Cat Callan. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. Parisian Charm School. I think I've had her on the show at least 3 times. And that was the last one, because that's her latest book. And yeah, so good. Isn't that fun? And the thing about it is too right now, yeah, we're all on Zoom, we're not seeing people in person. So it's like, what can you do to kind of spice things up? And so even like for me, I just took the Tranquility, leopard print scarf that we released in the fall and just threw it up in my hair. So, it's just fun to think of like, okay, how can I kind of spice things up a little bit? So. And
I know where all my ties are going to end up.
Yeah. I'm like, that's genius. I'd forgotten about her little trick. So thank you guys. Thanks for joining along. Yeah. Isn't that fun? So, a few of you were like, oh, I want a surprise guest, or, I want to like bring back someone who had been there before. And I'm like, I know just the person, especially, considering she's the biggest download. So we are going to transition and talk past.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing, and I've kind of already touched on this, but is the episode 1. And but I think Belle wants down. Sorry.
We have more dogs. You probably knew that though, right?
Yeah, and one of them is out in the other room, Mookie, with Jackson, which is bizarre, and then Belle is wanting Tim, of course. So anyway, sorry for the disruption. We need a nanny. We need a pug nanny. Mom? She's like, no. She stayed with me in DC last June, and she was like, this is ridiculous. We were like walking them all.
And she was right. She was
right.
But we love it.
We do love it. Yes, we wouldn't change a thing. Okay, so first episode, Mexico. Mentioned that. Read it. Yeah. And yeah. And what's interesting, somebody asked, where did I see the podcast going, and has it met my expectations? And I shared this with Tim earlier. I'm like, I didn't have any expectations, right? Podcasts weren't a thing. I had to tell people what a podcast was for at least the first 5+ years.
499 episodes.
No. People know now.
By now.
Everybody has a podcast now. It's just like, great, and I don't have to explain. It's like a radio show that you can listen to at any time. People were just like, what? I think Izzy wants down. I'm sorry.
Normally I'm behind the scenes and not producing and on camera at the same time.
It goes a little smoother.
This is what you all asked for.
My apologies. So, the thing about that is I was always thinking about, it's a great question. You want water? No, he's good. Okay. Was I really didn't have any expectations. It was September of 2005, and I had just gotten my book deal with, and was just working with an agent, and I think had just gotten a publisher, maybe not, but was working on Hip Tranquil Chick. And so, of course, the show was called Hip Tranquil Chick back then. But yeah, I just was like, oh, well, this seems like a fun thing. He was doing it for work. And I thought, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I was doing one for a Supreme Court nomination podcast at work. And we got in, I think, the Washington Post and the Seattle Times. And I got my voice on NPR, which was sort of weird dream come true. And I was like, Kimberly needs to get on this because this is easy, right? Yeah. Now you don't get on NPR that quickly or easily. So.
Because everybody has a podcast. But yeah, so I just thought that was a really great question. Has it met my expectations? And I hate to be like, I had no expectations because I am such a planner and whatnot, but I think it just seemed like a fun medium.
Yeah. And at the time you were really into the concept of expanding like a media presence in some way, kind of like yoga as a lifestyle. And that really fit into the vibe of what the podcasting could offer you. And here we are 15 years later, amazing.
Yeah. You know what was really neat? I think the first time I realized that the podcast kind of had legs, I mean, I would get emails from people, way more back then than I do now. And they were, new podcast listeners. And, again, the podcast thing was new, and just how helpful it was to them. And I was blown away. And I remember one woman from South Korea actually showed up at the yoga studio, and because she listened to my podcast. And that's when I was like, wow, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I wanted to share before we go into present again, because that's where I think most of your questions are answered. A few of my favorite episodes and takeaways. All right. So first one, Eric Maisel. Now I've had him on the podcast quite a few times. He's prolific. He writes a book a year. And anyway, one of the things that he said that I thought was quite profound, and it stuck with me, is that if you spend your day and think like giving to others, meaning like your full-time job, and you're not doing something that it is you really want to do, like write a book or start a podcast or whatever, that by the end of the day, you're too tired sometimes to get into that part. And then you become resentful. And so his thing is like, start your day. I think he gets up at 3 or 4 every morning to write. It's craziness, right? But he is prolific, very dedicated. He's a therapist out in San Francisco. But I just love that. So I wrote down creating first or become resentful. Second one, Sam Bennett, and a few of you actually mentioned this, is, and I love her teacup analogy, and it's funny, I don't have a teacup here tonight, but a teacup analogy, and her thing is that if your teacup is not full, nobody can have like anything from you. You can only give what is overflowing in your teacup. So, just the reminder, like you have to be full of self-care. Otherwise you're depleted and you've got nothing more to give. And I just thought that was just such a great reminder and a beautiful image. Okay. Favorite. And it's the first time I cried on the podcast, and it was The Last Pig. And I'm trying not to cry because I don't usually cry, but this meant a lot to me. So The Last Pig is a pig farmer in New York, upstate New York, who transitioned to becoming vegan and growing vegetables. And I interviewed him, and I interviewed the documentarian who followed his story and did a wonderful, gorgeous film called The Last Pig. And what's interesting is he wrote an article for like Farmers Almanac, or not Farmers Almanac, Farmers Weekly, like some farmers publication that was like, I'm a pig farmer, and I realize that what I'm doing is wrong. And it was just like, oh my God. So she reached out to him, found him, they connected, she did this beautiful film. And I've met a few of the pigs, his last pigs that actually went to sanctuaries. And it's just like that was heartbreaking and so touching to me. So touching. Favorite. Ashley Piper. So I interviewed her, gosh, was it a year ago? I think it was a year. I think it was early 2019. Yeah. And her book was Give a Shit. And anyway, it was all about green living, veganism, just like all sorts, just and irreverently but beautifully written. Actually, during that podcast, I was like, you would be my best friend. I just thought she was so fun. And then the last three that really stuck with me, and these have been over the past year, LaToya Peterson, who I had on, and we talked feminism, racial justice, social justice. La Sarmiento, I had them on, and we talked about being trans. And then Jamia, who I've had on twice, feminism once, and then this last time after George Floyd's murder. And again, I thought these three were just wonderful, of like current and really meaningful social justice issues. So those are my favorites and kind of takeaways. Now, I'm sure that, with 500 episodes, there's probably be more, but these are the ones that, like, when I sat down and really thought about it, these stuck out to me. Okay. Present.
Is anything going on in the news?
Yeah, right? So COVID, I mean, this was a big question. Actually, a lot of you asked this. And the question was, how are we adjusting? Like, how are things different, right? And, I will say, I think the piece that's interesting about this, and tell me if you agree, Tim, is like, initially kind of mid-March, I was like, oh, okay, like, go on through the end of March, like, we'll figure it out, yeah. And then it's like, towards the end of March, it's like, oh, okay, maybe towards the end of May, like, okay, we can hang in there 2 more months, I guess. Now it's like, God only knows, right?
Yeah. And I know that Kimberly has gotten to that stage of acceptance, because prior to that, every day the question would be, but when can I go to Paris? And now I don't get that every day anymore. I think that there's kind of some kind of an acceptance that this is going to be for a minute. And I think that's good that we've kind of gotten to that point. But we were a little bit ahead of the game, because I have to confess, okay, you all know I'm a huge nerd. That's part of the brand. That's the Tim Mooney brand. But I also had this weird fascination with pandemics, like way before they became, more relevant in our life. And so I also had a colleague at work who had a family member in Wuhan. So I was hearing about this since November. And then as things started to percolate in February and then into early March, that was when I was sort of like, this could turn into a thing. So by the time, everybody remembers where they were on March 11th. That was, when Tom Hanks, was reported to get it, and then the NBA shut down.
And Trump gave his little.
Right. Oh, thing. Yeah, there was that too. But at that point, by that point, we had already started to kind of pull together some things. We had gotten into kind of that, like, not light prep mode, but I feel like that we've been ahead of the game a little bit just because of my nerdery on all of this.
Yeah.
But for the most part, though, we're really, really fortunate, because two things: we're both in a stable employment scenario. That's all good. Kimberly's practice. I'm back practicing law again for a nonprofit. So that's good. That's been good. But also, we are beyond lucky that we've got 2 different places that we can go to, and it's been legal to go back and forth between these 2 places in DC and West Virginia. So that just kind of keeps things a little more sane. The dogs are happy. I mean, Belle Star is not going to like it if I ever have to go back to the office. That is for darn sure. But it's been fine, except for all of the horror that is happening outside of us. Because I don't know if the rest of you who are watching or listening, there is a toll that it takes when you absorb all of that. And of course, then the George Floyd murder on top of that, it's tough. It's tough to exist in 2020. But, I think we're in an unusually privileged position. And I think that we're doing well.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say too, one of the big things kind of, because the question was like, how are you adjusting to the new normal? And initially, I mean, right after, was it the weekend? I think it was the weekend after the NBA, like all that, someone had reached out and was like, oh, you should offer more stuff so that, because people really will need help and attention now. And so I immediately got an online event scheduled for the following like Monday morning. And then I transitioned to Saturday noon for TDJ brunches, and I've been putting out videos and just trying to provide in the virtual retreats, just trying to provide, help, right? Because it's been just like, I know it's really intense and very overwhelming. And one of the things too that came up for some of you is media, right? And how, because it becomes addicting. So how to actually be able to pull away so that you're not so bogged down. And so one of the things I wrote in here just to mention is a media diet. And I don't mean bury your head in the sand, pretend this isn't happening, but say you're checking 5 times a day, for breaking news, maybe check 2 and then go down to 1, or whatever would feel appropriate to you. But, the thing about it is like our bodies, our systems are just so, in fight or flight response and just so overwhelming. And Mom's telling me to get closer to the mic.
Audio production from Fletcher, Oklahoma. Thank you. Thank you from the Fletcher control room.
But anyway, so I just thought that was, an important thing to keep in mind. We want to be informed, but not obsessed. The other thing that came up, from a few of you, and I love this, because even earlier this week, I was like, Mom, I don't know, I'm like 46 or 47. I can never remember. And she wrote back, you're 47. I'm like, okay. But, we're talking about aging, and I can't even remember what the context was. But actually, I have so much to say about this. And so I think that I will circle back and do maybe like a whole podcast series on this and talking to people like Jamie Cat Callan, like people who are aging like amazingly and with flair. And because I know it's a thing. I mean, I started feeling it at least 10 plus years ago of just like body aching, all sorts of things. We were just like, oh, the energy is just not the same, all that sort of stuff. So honey, I got a lot to say on that. And so I think that we will need a whole like series around that. So stay tuned. The other thing was day in the life. And again, I think I'm just going to highlight these because I will circle back to these and do kind of like podcast series about them. Now, one question you had, and I thought was interesting, is how I get guests and prepare. So I will say I stalk some people, such as Jamie Cat Callan. Whenever I first found her French books, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have you on the show. So oftentimes I find people, sometimes I have people reach out to me and be like, hey, I'd love to be on your show. And then, just kind of think of like, would it be a good fit? Does your message speak to my audience? And then another thing is my publisher for my first 2 books was New World Library. So they, every season, reach out to me about new books by authors who they think would be a good fit for the show. And so that's where I get a lot of them too, like Linda Carroll, who was recently on about love skills, and actually the one who was on for $4.99, Flaunt, Laura Cheadle. So those are people from New World Library. So, and how I prepare, honestly, I don't read the books, rarely, maybe 20% of the time I read the books. Usually what I do is I go through the table of contents and I go through and I'll like read reviews and things along those lines just to get ideas on what to ask. Another thing was all about goal setting. And I just kind of wanted to mention this because it's hard to plan right now because we don't know what's going on. And so if you take a peek at my month in review, and I just did one last night for July over on the blog, you know what? I find it's really helpful to, and this is kind of how I laid out my planner, my day book, is to daily, weekly be reviewing what are your goals for the month? What are your goals for the year, to make sure you're staying aware of them. And let's be honest, our goals for 2020, we were like, new decade, new year, woo! Like they have shifted. I mean, now it's a lot about survival, right? And so as they shift, letting them shift for you. But I will say every Sunday night I sit down and I plan my week ahead. And I just think that's so important.
Yeah. And I think in all of this, one of the hardest things for Kimberly, because I can tell you about this about her. She'll never admit this. She's a huge planner, and you've seen that in the podcast. Well, now, you can't plan out more than a few weeks realistically around these days. So I think that Kimberly's just sort of itching. She's sort of like, I need to plan for June of 2021, and she can't do it. Yeah, so she's been, it's sort of like those superheroes when they lose their powers for like an episode or two of their TV show. That's where Kimberly's at right now with her planning superpower.
And I have to say what is so good about the inability to plan that same way, I have had free weekends. I've never in the history of like Tranquil Space, never, ever had a free weekend. It's what
normal people have.
I know.
Normal people have unstructured time. It's good.
Amazing.
Tell her in the chat box. It's a good thing.
I think it's genius, and I encourage it highly. Okay. I'm always pushing it, but I'm not as great at practicing it. And now it's like good. Even after I'm done with clients, like sometimes I won't be done till 8:30 at night, but then I'm like, oh, let's watch a movie and have popcorn. I would never have done that before. I would have come home from the office and gotten online and handled work and then gone to bed. And it's really been nice because when your options are limited, at least for us, it's allowed us. I mean, I have thank God I like him because we are together all the time. And here we have 1,000 square feet. In DC, as you know, we have 600 feet and 4 freaking animals that are, as you've seen, quite needy. Okay, this one is for you.
Oh, okay. What is it?
What have I learned over the past 500 episodes?
What have I learned over 500?
What have I?
Oh, what have you?
You had an answer. You said nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Because she doesn't listen to the show. She has. I think that you have. Maybe you listened to the Sark episode, but maybe not.
I don't think so. Because I interviewed them, right?
She's there.
So it's like.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. And you don't consume a ton of podcasts, but I think though I was being a little flippant. I think that you learn from every single person that you ever talk to on this show. And for me, it's a really interesting thing because the dialogue and the discussions on topics that I would frankly probably not consume myself ordinarily, I've learned a ton through the years on a variety of subjects, just because I'm not exactly in your demo. Right, I'm just here to say, but I think it's a really valuable thing for me to have had this kind of exposure over these 500 episodes. And we were trying to figure out how much time the two of us have spent in preparing and bringing these episodes to you. And we just got scared and stopped. But it's been so valuable, I think, for me personally, and I know for you too, just as an outside observer, that it's just it's kind of fun to be able to celebrate this kind of a milestone. So thank you all for being here and being a part of it. Otherwise it would just be us talking, going, I bought her flowers and stuff, and we got Olive Garden, our big fancy meal the other night.
Don't judge. I broke up with him for a while and was like, okay, they're not my favorite anymore, but I'm from Oklahoma. It was like where I went for prom. OG is a big deal.
And zero disrespect to West Virginia, but that's pretty much highfalutin eating around here these days, so.
I mean, it's unlimited salads. Anyway. Okay. So the one thing too that I wanted to say something about what you just said. Oh, hours. Would you guesstimate maybe 5 hours per episode, like between the
two of us? I would say, yeah, because the rough, people ask me this all the time from a podcast production perspective. It's usually 2 to 3 times the length of the show is how long it takes for me to do the post recording production. And sometimes it's fast and sometimes it's slow. It depends on the audio quality and things like that. So, for a 40-minute show, which is what they average, I'm spending probably close to an hour and a half, at least myself, an hour and a half to 2 hours. But for you, it's the time of recording and it's the pre-shows and all of that. So it's probably somewhere
like
between 4 and 5 hours. Yeah.
So 5 times 500, 250,000? Or is that 25,000?
Wait, 5 hours.
Yeah, times
500.
It's 2,500.
That's 2,500.
Okay, 2,500. I'm like zeros. I'm not a math person, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I got the 25, yeah. Okay, so the other thing too, which was just interesting, is the evolution of the show, right? So it did start out very yoga-centric, very much about yoga off the mat. Totally still into that. Although now I'm doing ballet every freaking day. I haven't even done yoga, I don't think, in like 2 weeks, which is craziness. But, the idea of yoga off the mat still kind of like so ingrained in me. And now I see it more as a spin kind of with Tranquility du Jour, right? So tranquility in every day. So you take yoga off the mat, right? And that whole idea was like yoga is a lifestyle. It's not just, warrior two. But then same thing with tranquility. It's not something you experience on a yoga retreat or when you have twinkle lights up and flowers and a candle. The idea is, how do you find tranquility in everyday life? So I would see like that's kind of the biggest evolution of it, and I think it started, I was like yammering more, most of it. And then it turned more into an interview show. And one of the things a lot of you said is you miss kind of the earlier type. So I will keep that in mind and see what I can do to do a few more of those.
And our technology has also evolved quite a bit. I mean, you were in a bathroom talking into a laptop's internal microphone, which would horrify me today because I've become such an audio snob. But yeah, and now we're literally talking, in a camera and doing a global video and audio live show at the same time. I mean, that is a huge, huge step in terms of the evolution too. So
yeah. One other thing that I loved was how have I blended my Oklahoma roots with cosmopolitan DC. I was like, I love that DC was considered cosmopolitan. But, the one thing that came to mind to me, and I'm curious what you would say to this one, but it's like, this is where I do sometimes get teary, is Garth Brooks. Okay. I love this man. And I don't love him, like have a crush on him. Like I love him as in his talent. He's from Oklahoma. Every time I go to his shows, I'm like crying. Like, why am I crying? But I'm like so in love with him. And, he has a documentary. It was at Netflix. It was like a 2-part documentary.
Yeah.
So good. Watch it. And I think you'll get a really good taste of him if you're like, what the hell? But, I honestly didn't know he was such a big deal. Like when I watched that documentary, I was like, oh, everybody. Okay, maybe not everybody. A lot of people love this man. Yeah.
I mean, I knew about him and I was not a country music guy. So, I mean, he crossed over into pop culture.
And, it's like, I loved him in high school and college, right? And then I kind of like he retired. But then Tim got me a ticket in 2014 as a surprise because he was like starting to tour again. And then I've made him go to like 15 shows.
If you count the drive-in theater that she dragged me to the other night, which was just a movie, but I'm still going to count it, 16 shows.
Yeah. So that's my Oklahoma roots, honey. And those, like, it comes out in spades with country music. When I go home to Oklahoma to see my mama and my papa, like, which I love, it's like, as soon as we get there, I'm like, I turn on the country music. I mean, I listen to country regularly too, but home. And I love the plains and I love the dirt, the red dirt. And I love the, the open sky. The sunsets there are like no other. So how have I blended it? I think I've just taken my appreciation of that and Garth Brooks into my DC lifestyle.
Yeah, I was going to say Oklahoma and DC does not exactly blend in a conventional sense. It's sort of like there's chunks of Oklahoma and chunks of DC sort of swirling around in a cup. That's kind of what I would say.
Yeah.
Because I mean, each piece comes out in a different way, but yeah.
Yeah, I like to wear my pink cowboy boots around DC and people are like,
Exactly.
So that's like a blend that might.
My favorite thing that Kimberly says about Oklahoma, and she goes, yeah, I tell people I'm from Oklahoma. Who's from Oklahoma? That's what she says.
Totally.
I didn't say that. She said that.
Because people are always like, what? Where? I think, is that like around Texas or something? I'm like, yes, it's about Texas. And then I'll be like, have you ever been? And they're like, oh no, and it's just like,
Or I drove through when I drove across country once.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a beautiful place.
It's very pretty.
Like literally, I remember being in Big Sur 1995. Okay. After I graduated from college, I was living in Colorado, working at a ski resort, and my girlfriend and I drove to California, and we paused in Big Sur to watch a sunset, and some older man in a pickup truck comes by and he's watching it with us. And he said, this is amazing, but I've never seen a sunset like I've seen in Oklahoma. And I was like, hey, we're from Oklahoma. It was just like, I don't know why, but the sunsets there are to die for. So it's worth going to Oklahoma to see the sunsets. Okay. Future. So this was interesting. Quite a few asked about this. And so next chapter for me. And would there be more podcasts? Never fear. Yes, I have no plans of stopping the podcast. It's kind of like just a thing like I have to do. It'd
be weird not to have you doing a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I have a bit more time, right? And, we had gone to every other week for a while, but then I had so many in the can, which mean I had so many interviews that I was like, let's release weekly. And I think we probably will at least definitely through the end of the year. I have so many. And on Friday, I have like 5 interviews, some really exciting ones too. So anyway, next chapter for me. So I just wrote down a few things that I thought might be interesting. Clothing line rebrand. Okay, this is going to be happening this fall. I've been hinting of it since January, February, and I planned to do it in the spring, but then COVID hit. And so a lot of my kind of plans with it have been derailed, but never fear, it's not going away. It's just morphing some. And it's been around since 2002. So it's 18 years old. This is really sad as I'm leaving my office space for now. And I wrote about this in my love note. It's really like sad because I love this space. I've been in there 2 years, but I don't think I'll be seeing clients in person. I mean, maybe for a year. So, to continue to pay for it and not be able to use it was just like, so I'm having to let it go. And that makes me really sad, but never fear. I will get another one whenever it's safe to see people in person again. I have 2 upcoming international retreats, and I think they're the last retreats that I'll be doing in the foreseeable future. So June in next year, hoping they allow us back in freaking Paris. Oh my gosh. And then Italy the following year. And so I think that might be it. Again, as we were talking just a little bit earlier about aging, like energetically, I've been doing international retreats now for 20 years. And I think that these might be my last 2. Which is sad, but also, again, an evolution.
Or she could be like Motley Crue and just say it's her last ones and then just keep doing last ones. So grain of salt, people.
Which we actually saw them in concert once.
We did, I think, on their first farewell tour. Yeah. Their first of 7.
Okay. The other thing would be like, I really, really want a format with pigs. I think a lot of you know that. And we looked and looked and looked after I sold the studio. We looked for a year and a half and couldn't find anything that would fit our budget that was close enough to DC. So that has been put on hold, but it's still in my future. Pigs, and I would like to have more pugs. God forbid, Tim. I'm always finding these really old, like one-eyed, like, no legs, they have legs, but it's like pugs on Instagram. And I'm like, oh my God, Tim, this one. He's like, we are full. The house is full.
Full house.
So I want more, but if I have a format, I feel like I'd have more space for them. Next book. I've been working on this thing since 2014 in bits and pieces, starts and stops. And I really want to get a book out, kind of talking about the story of the transition of like letting go of the studio that was like my life, my everything for 18 years. And that kind of morphine and evolution. So anyway, stay tuned. And I would say too, like the other thing is I just want to do more work around the TDJ tenets, right? Which are compassion, creativity, mindfulness, style, and I'm blanking on the last one. Compassion, creativity, why am I blanking? Style, mindfulness, wellness. Oh my God, yeah, like everything Tranquility du Jour stands for, wellness. So those are the 5 tenets. So I want to create an e-course around those and just go deeper into them. Because, last year I tried to kind of look at okay, I've covered so much stuff in the past, like 15 years of podcasting and 20 years of having the business. And I was like, what are the main pieces and what would they fit under? And so I came up with these 5. And then, so I just want to do more work, I think, with that. So that's my idea of like what's next. I hope that's helpful for those of you who were interested, and still keeping my private practice. I love working with my clients, and I love being here with you guys. I mean, we've been doing TDJ Live now seasonally for 15 probably years.
Yeah.
So keeping all of that up. So anyway, that's that. That's kind of a lot of answers to your questions. And then also just know that some of those, like kind of the aging and the day in a life, things like that, I thought, oh, let me save those because I can talk a long time about those, maybe for a podcast or a blog post. So stay tuned. And if there's anything too that you're like, oh my God, I had to have this question answered and it wasn't answered, email me, hello@KimberlyWilson.com. Okay, so let's do some announcements. And if you have any questions, too, please put them over in the chat box. Anything that you're like, what was that? Or what was this? Or, kind of whatever it might be. I just want to make sure that I get that answered in the next 5 minutes. Okay, book club pick. So many of you guessed it because
you gave it away.
I gave it away.
You gave it away.
I didn't mean to.
You did. But you did. Caftan.
Okay, you guys know Andre Leon Talley. He's amazing. If you have not seen the documentary, The Gospel According to Andre, so good. And let me just tell you, he's been to Tranquil Space.
I was just going to say, we have met him personally because he came to the yoga studio several times.
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't there.
Oh, you never got to meet? Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, dude's a force of nature.
He's like 6'6" or something.
Force of nature. But
yeah. Yeah, he came for a private lesson with one of our teachers. And we had a sign on the stair that said, practice mindfulness on the stairs. And he made a giggle of that. That's like the one thing I remember her saying about him. Oh, and he just wanted restorative yoga. He didn't want to do anything like sun salutations. So anyway, he's adorable. And I say that simply from seeing the documentary, which was so good. And I started reading the book last night. And ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, it is so good. Even if you're not in fashion or style or what have you, his story is just so inspiring. So I hope you'll read along. And we do this over in the Facebook group. And I know not everyone's on Facebook, so my apologies because I hate to leave you out. But, I needed kind of like a group format. So that's where we're doing it. And the next thing is just stay tuned because I am going to be pulling together our virtual visit. So we'll do this online to meet some pigs at a farm sanctuary.
This is going to be fun.
It'll be so fun.
Yeah.
So last weekend, I found out about the Great Farm Sanctuary Tour. Okay, I find out about it Saturday morning. It's happening Saturday. I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing today. And I was squealing the whole time because it was 10 farm sanctuaries we got to visit. And most of them had a lot of pigs. So I have all these videos, and one in Hawaii was eating papayas. Yep. I'm like, we're simpatico. We see each other. I love papaya.
Every time there was a pig, she'd be like, Tim, come in here. There's a pig.
He's like, oh my God, I've seen a lot of pigs.
I've seen a lot of pigs, but I came and I saw the pigs. They were great pigs.
The other thing is I just want to remind you, TDJ Live is coming up September 20th. That's the next thing I had planned, although I'll probably throw in a TDJ brunch in the interim. So stay tuned for that. And then before I close with a reading I want to share is please, like if you have any photos from tonight, like please share using hashtag Tranquility du Jour, because I put ours over on Instagram in the stories because I just thought it was kind of fun to see the setup. Like we have 3 computers, an iPhone, we've got mics, we have flowers, like the whole thing. And so it's just kind of fun to see like, okay, what goes into that? So I'd love to see what goes into yours, sharing your Sunday night with us. Okay, so here's the poem, and it's not really a poem, it's a saying by John Lewis, who we recently lost, as you know, July 17th, so the day before the mid-year virtual retreat. And of course, today is James Baldwin's birthday. Now, like high and low to find the right thing in his writings to share, and I just couldn't find it. But this was it, John Lewis. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone any person or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely, but when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. John Lewis.
Rest in power.
Rest in power.
Yep.
Oh my God. And oh yeah, and Mom, of course, texted me again. It came through. I love you, Mom. Thank you for keeping me on task. She was like, "What's the name of the book?"
She texted me too.
Like,
both of us.
She knows how to use her texting.
It's the Fletcher control room. I love it.
Fletcher, Oklahoma. It has like 2,000 people there or something. The Chiffon Trenches is the name of the book, you guys. And I highly recommend you pick it up. It is so good. Like I said, I just started it and we're going to read it all of August. So I am going to end with just a toast. And then I am going to say goodbye, but I'm going to stay on in case any of you have some questions or anything you want to say that I didn't get to, because unfortunately I wasn't really able to read the chat as I was like going through all this, and I will read it later. But if you have anything that you kind of just want to make sure that you get covered, please stay on. I'll stay on for a few minutes longer and then just answer anything I can. Okay. So until then, let's say a toast to 500 more. And a toast to you all for listening, for sharing your time and energy, for reacting to what you learn within these podcasts, to resonating with it, to growing, and to freaking being along for 15 years. So
that's insane. Cheers. And cheers to you for the patience and the tenacity and the creativity that you've brought to the show for everybody out there. So cheers to that too.
Cheers. Mwah. And to you for doing
I didn't do anything.
Freaking like work behind the scenes. Because I I just do the recording and then I'm like, here you go, Tim. Good luck. Hope we can pull it all together. So yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. And like I said, I'll just hang on a few minutes in case anyone has any particular questions that they didn't get answered. Oh, and Jen from Tennessee said she would be so happy if I did a shout out to her. So Jen from Tennessee, mwah, thank you for being here tonight. All right, so I'll head on over here. How did you get into the whole Paris thing being from Oklahoma? Oh my gosh, that's a great, who just asked that? I love that. Oh, never mind. Tim's using the cursor.
Are you doing this on audio?
Yeah, I'm talking.
Oh, you're talking. Then
yeah.
Never mind. I will not play music over you.
Don't play music yet.
Okay, never mind. Here you go.
Yeah, so I love this question is, how did you get in, this from Lisa, how did you get into the whole Paris thing being from Oklahoma? You know, what's funny, Lisa, is I backpacked after college for a couple of months and went to Paris, somehow ended up in Paris on Bastille Day. I really knew nothing about European history. And we didn't mean to be there on Bastille Day, but we stumbled upon it. Me and a girlfriend of mine. And when I got there, I was just like blown away, but I was really blown away from every place that I went. But Paris just had a little like magic. And then I would say, gosh, I didn't get back. So that was 1995 and I didn't get back again until 2009, I think.
Yeah.
We went over. And it just, and there's just something about the French style, French way of living. Jamie is also a big kind of Francophile. And, it's a sense of style. It's a sense of ease, simplicity, going to the markets. savoring, sitting outside at the cafe and sipping those little tiny things. My dad likes to drink like really big drinks. And so we took him to Italy last year and he was like, what's this? And so if he would have seen that, he would have just lost his mind. But anyway, it's this idea of savoring, I think, that just like really stands out to me. So thank you. Thank you for asking. I can go on and on about Paris. Love the idea of a series about issues related to aging. You can call it Outside of Time. Kathleen, I might just take that. Thank you. That's a great idea. Let me see if there are any other questions. Linda Outley in the house.
Oh, hey, Linda.
Hey,
oh, my
Linda.
goodness.
Linda is someone who, oh my God. So she worked at the studio from 2003 until I left.
Yeah, MVP.
MVP. That's a long time. I remember training her, like sitting near a closet. Anyway, like old school. So Linda, what a delight to have you here tonight. Listening on iPod too. Great. First rescue Chihuahua in 2008. Karen, I just discovered yoga the year before. Now that I've had this new friend to walk with in the park every day, I head out with my iPod. Remember those? Yes, filled with Kirtans by Krishna Das and Tranquility podcasts. I find you absolutely fascinating. Obviously still do. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Karen. And thank you for adopting your Chihuahua. Awesome. Ludid. Oh my God, amazing. All right, guys, I'd love to hear about how you handle transitions emotionally. I don't adjust very well to change, and I'm quite a bit older than you, so I've had to deal with a lot of change. Oh my God, Debbie. Okay, let me just take a sip and chat for just a moment about that.
Any change happening lately?
Oh my God, right? When when we think change, I think aging. I think too, transitions, right? Also of like, leaving my world that I knew intimately for 18 years, right? That he was a big part of for 13 of those.
Something like that.
And I would say the big thing that I would say kind of with that is, I read the book Transitions by William Bridges, as I think the author. I'm like 99% sure. It's just called Transitions. And it was so good because if you think of it, we are constantly transitioning, right? Constantly. Jobs, relationships, the pandemic, oh my God. And so, thinking about like his whole thing is you have to have an ending and then the kind of murky middle, which he calls the neutral zone, before you have a new beginning. Anyway, it's just genius. But I think too, it's also getting comfortable with change, which is never easy. No human likes change. And yet it's constantly, it's happening regularly. And now more than ever, right? From a planning perspective, we just can't. And so, I would say that's kind of the big thing for me, transitions emotionally. I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of therapy. I do a lot of kind of sitting with what I'm feeling and trying to make sense of it, which is it's not easy. It's not easy. I hope that's helpful, Debbie. There's so much to be said about that. And I've done quite a few podcasts about transitions that you might find interesting. Just Google transitions, Tranquility du Jour, and I think you'll find quite a few because over the years I have interviewed people who have made transitions, big career transitions, and how that's gone for them. And then
somebody just said they like how we interact. She just made fun of me on live international TV, and that's how things go.
Let's see. Lorraine, have you considered more YouTube videos? Love past videos from the Pink Palace. Lorraine, I love that you asked that. It's funny. I do have a few Tea with Kimberly's in the can that I'm waiting for someone to produce. And but I do need to do another Pink Palace tour. And I get this question a lot. And I think the house is just never quite conducive because we have so many animals. But let me get something like that pulled together because I do get this question a lot. And it's fun. I like to show off the Pink Palace. I like to show it. And those of you who are like, what's the Pink Palace? It's my tiny home that I've owned since we started dating, 2014. Yeah. No, 2004.
I was just going to say 2014.
Numbers. Yeah. So since 2004,
yeah.
Which is 16 years. Okay. So, and I think it was August, maybe.
It was that summer.
September?
Yeah. This month.
Yeah. Okay. And anyway, so it's tiny, 600 square feet. And, so it's just a lot of management of space and using a lot of upper space. So yeah, I will. So you stay tuned for that, Miss Lorraine, and thanks for the question. One of the pre-questions I asked about your relationship, Paula. I think there was something like, how did we meet? And I didn't go over that because I feel like we talked about that so much in other podcasts, but we could say a little something. And I think her question was like, too, like, how do you, kind of maintain the relationship or whatever. I mean, I would say big sense of humor helps.
Yeah. Also complete capitulation on my part. That's really the key.
That always works.
Just give up,
I'm always right. She's
not, but I'm not allowed to say that.
Do you remember that one time, like he was mean to me and then he apologized. I'm not very good at apologizing. He apologized. And then I said back to him, I'm sorry you were mean
because
to
it was a two-way street.
Yeah. So I should have said like, I'm sorry, I overreacted or whatever. But instead I said, I'm sorry you were mean to me. That was funny.
It's funny. It's
not if you're in the,
it's
yeah,
also,
you're in the relationship.
It's also, anyways.
Let's see. Black, leopard print, and red lips. That's definitely your thing now. It's so you, Lisa. Yes. Debbie, thank you. I've heard almost all the podcasts. I'll look them up. Yeah. Debbie, I'd recommend reading or listening to Pema Chodron. Yes. She's so good. And I like both of their black outfits. Oh yeah, I didn't even realize you're wearing black too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually wear black when I'm on the TV screen.
Yeah.
On the computer.
That's funny. Yeah, I didn't even like it. Does kind of match, doesn't it? That's nice.
Calvin Klein. Vintage.
You've had that for years.
Forever.
Let's see. Lisa, I like was okay. Yeah. And do I need to rush out and buy my Tranquility favorite before the transitions? Karen, just so you know, kind of the big thing, it's going to be renamed, and then I'm going to be transitioning mainly to all black. So if you want colors, hit the sale because the sale is going on and until the colors run out. We've already sold out of 2 colors. So if you want colors, now's the time to get them, because I think we're just going to stick with like mainly black, a little au naturel, which is undyed bamboo. So it's kind of like an off-white. It's really beautiful. And then maybe 1 color-ish per season or year even. It just got to the point where, as you probably know, my seamstress is local. And so she has rolls of fabric in her garage, and it's so many colors. I just got carried away with the colors over the years. And then people always want the new color. So the old colors need love too. So anyway, that's going to be a big transition. And then also the name is going to shift, but in a good way. And then we're going to fold the website under KimberlyWilson.com. So just stay tuned. There's a lot of things that need to morph there, but don't worry if you have your staples, they're still going to be available. I'm probably going to trim down the designs though. So right now we have 40. I'm going to try to take it down to about 20. So just a heads up on that. Oh, and Melinda, who is here, I see her. She is one of our gorgeous models who you will see on the website, and who, if you joined for TDJ Brunch, she spoke too. And she is a Tranquility aficionado. And so she's kind of a celebrity. So I just wanted to point her out. Sister, I'm in New York. I'm all about black. Yeah, all about black. Any chance of expanding the size offerings? Allison, the great thing is like, extra small fits a 0, extra large fits up to a 16. So that's a pretty wide, broad reach, I guess I'm trying to say, because it's like 0 to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So sorry, it goes up to 14. However, if people ever needed or wanted an XX large, know what, we can make it. So you would just order an extra large and in the notes say XX large or whatever. It's easy. My seamstress is so great about being able to, we custom do things a lot. I had somebody recently who's 4'10" order some of our pants, and I reached out to him what is your inseam? Because I know these are not going to fit you, honey. And so we totally do that. That's the beauty of being small and locally sewn, and she just works magic with all this stuff. So great question, Allison. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. So I will go through the box and see if I missed anything, and maybe pull something together for tomorrow's show notes. Just it's obviously been recorded, and then we're going to put this out as the podcast for tomorrow. And then maybe for show notes, I'll go through and look at your questions and see if if there's any that I can kind of answer for you there. But go get Chiffon Trenches and read along with us. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for listening all these freaking years. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Mwah. Have a wonderful week.